The paralyzed girl was rejected on a Christmas blind date, until a little girl asked, "Can I hug you?" Snow fell gently over Boston, blanketing the city in soft white. Twinkling lights wrapped around lampposts, and carolers sang down cobblestone sidewalks. On this Christmas Eve, the city shimmered with a quiet magic. Inside Winter Rose, one of Boston's most elegant restaurants, chandeliers sparkled above velvet-covered chairs, and a string quartet played a gentle violin melody. Every table flickered with candlelight. Couples laughed over wine, the scent of cinnamon and roasted chestnut lingering in the air. At a table near the window, Grace Montgomery, 28, sat alone. Her long wavy blonde hair fell gently over her shoulders, and her soft blue dress framed her delicate figure with quiet elegance. She wore a hint of gloss on her lips, a silver pendant at her neck, and her hands were folded neatly in her lap. Her wheelchair, sleek and understated, sat close to the table, its wheels dusted faintly with snow. It had been 3 years since the accident that took her ability to walk, 2 since she had last tried to date. And tonight was her first blind date since she began hiding from the world. Grace's heart fluttered as she glanced at the entrance. Every time the door opened, she looked up with hope, only to find it wasn't him. She told herself to be brave. "Maybe Christmas Eve still holds a bit of magic," she whispered silently. She adjusted her posture, straightened her back, and tried to smile, but her reflection in the wineglass flickered with doubt. Around her, couples clinked glasses, leaned into each other, laughed softly. Grace sat still, the only one alone. Then, a tall man in a navy coat approached. His eyes scanned the room until they landed on her. Her breath caught. He stopped at the table, frowning slightly. Then his eyes dropped to the wheelchair. His expression changed. It was not confusion. It was disappointment. "Are you Grace?" he asked. She nodded, her voice small. "Yes." He looked uncomfortable. "Rachel didn't say. You were disabled." His words sliced through the warm air like ice. I assumed." He glanced around, then leaned slightly forward and said, louder than necessary, "I thought you were normal. I didn't sign up to be someone's caretaker." Several heads turned. A woman at the next table blinked. A man sipped his wine slower, trying not to stare. Grace's lips parted, but she could not find words. The man gave a short shake of his head. "I'm sorry. This isn't what I expected." Without another word, he turned and walked out. She sat frozen, eyes stinging. People were watching, not with cruelty, but with something worse, pity. She gripped the sides of her wheels and gave them a push. Slowly, she turned from the table. Her breath caught in her throat, vision blurring. She moved toward the exit. That was when she heard it. A small, curious voice. "Miss, why are you sad?" Grace looked down in surprise. A little girl stood beside her, no more than 4 years old, with curly brown hair, cheeks flushed from the cold, and a tiny red Christmas dress dusted with snowflakes. She held a little knitted reindeer in one hand. Her wide eyes shimmered. Grace tried to smile. "I'm okay, sweetie." The girl tilted her head, studying her with the kind of innocent sincerity only a child could give. Then, in a soft, earnest voice, she asked, "Would you like a hug?" Grace blinked. No one had asked her that in years. Not like this. Not without judgment. Not with conditions. Tears fell before she could stop them. And as the little girl wrapped her small arms gently around Grace's waist, something inside her cracked open. It was the first real warmth she had felt in a long, long time. A shadow moved closer. Grace turned and saw a man approach, tall, composed, with dark hair touched by the cold wind, his coat tailored to perfection. His presence alone made the air shift slightly, like he carried a gravity that others moved around. But his eyes were not cold. They were steady, dark, thoughtful. He stopped beside the little girl and said gently, "Chloe, are you bothering this lady?" The girl looked up at him with absolute delight. "No, Daddy." She was sad, so I gave her a hug. The man gave Grace a small, apologetic nod. She tends to adopt people when she senses they're not smiling. Grace wiped at her face quickly, realizing her cheeks were still wet with tears. She tried to find her voice. "It's okay. Really." She was very kind. The man glanced at her hands. They were still trembling slightly. Instead of speaking more, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a crisp, white napkin. Without a word, he placed it gently on the table, within reach, but not too close. He did not hand it to her, did not reach toward her wheelchair. Just enough. Grace's throat tightened at the simple courtesy. He looked at his daughter again. "Say thank you to the lady for letting you give her a hug." Chloe turned, beaming. "Thank you, Miss Grace." Grace smiled, surprised. "How did you know my name?" Chloe grinned. "You have a name tag on your bag." She pointed at Grace's small tote, hanging behind her chair. A soft laugh escaped Grace's lips for the first time that evening. The man's expression softened, just a little. "She also tends to notice everything," he said. "I see that," Grace replied. Chloe pulled out a sheet of Christmas stickers from her coat pocket. "Look. Snowflake stickers. They sparkle when you smile." She peeled one off and carefully pressed it to Grace's hand. "There. Now you have to smile more." Grace laughed again. It was impossible not to. Then Chloe leaned close to her father and whispered loudly, "Daddy, can we eat dinner with the pretty lady with the yellow hair?" He looked momentarily caught off guard. "Chloe." Grace quickly eased the tension. "If it's not an inconvenience, I would not mind the company." He hesitated for only a moment, then nodded. The hostess reappeared and guided them toward another table, one a bit more private, by the frosted window panes glowing with soft amber light. As they moved past the entrance again, the wind outside howled against the glass doors. A sudden gust rushed in as a group entered behind them. Grace flinched instinctively. The man stepped half a pace to the side, without a word, placing himself directly between her and the incoming cold. He did not touch her. He did not say anything. But the way he moved was precise, intentional. He stood there until the wind passed, until the door clicked shut again. Then he walked on. Grace blinked, startled by the quiet protection. When they reached the new table, Chloe eagerly climbed into a booster seat. Grace turned her wheelchair slightly but found the base of the table's legs awkward. Before she could say anything, the man stepped forward, not to help her, not to push or grab the chair, but simply to adjust the dining chair next to her by about 20 degrees, giving her a smoother angle of entry. No fanfare. No unnecessary comments, just a small, precise gesture that allowed her to roll into place without difficulty. Grace settled in, then looked up at him. It was such a simple thing, but she felt it in her chest, a warmth she had not known in years. For the first time since the accident, someone had moved in sync with her reality, without pity, without fear, with respect. She looked at him and offered a genuine smile. "I'm Grace Montgomery," she said softly. He nodded, and the corner of his mouth lifted slightly. Liam Hockley. The name struck her, familiar, but she could not place it just yet. What she knew for certain, though, was this. He had just restored something in her that had been quietly slipping away for a very long time. The restaurant's warmth wrapped around them as Chloe settled into the booster seat between Grace and Liam. The soft glow of candlelight flickered on their tablecloth, casting gentle shadows. Outside, the snow fell silently. Inside, the world seemed to pause. Chloe's bright eyes shone as she looked at Grace, clearly thrilled to have the yellow-haired lady sitting beside her. Liam, the man most of Boston knew as ruthless and reserved, transformed in that moment. His posture eased, his rigid shoulders relaxed. When he looked at his daughter and Grace across the table, his expression was quietly gentle. Chloe began to chatter excitedly. She told a story from preschool, how her favorite stuffed bear lost an ear that morning. Grace listened closely, nodding at all the right moments. Then Grace reached for a folded napkin, and deftly shaped it into a little paper rabbit with ears standing up. She handed the rabbit to Chloe, who giggled and hugged it tight. Liam watched the two of them, his face softening. In his eyes there was a flicker of something he had not allowed himself to feel in years, something like hope, like a memory of laughter he had forgotten. The sudden ring of a smartphone broke the gentle bubble around their table. Liam glanced at the screen. His assistant. A business emergency, no doubt. For a moment he hesitated. Should he take the call? He took a breath, looked at Chloe's expectant face, and then gently set the phone down without answering. He turned to Grace and said quietly, "Tonight I am taking the evening for my daughter." Grace felt something shift inside her. A CEO, someone others would kill to meet, choosing family over profit, over crisis. In that instant, she saw strength tied deeply to compassion. As plates arrived, the conversation between Grace and Liam softened. Grace pressed her lips together, then spoke in a gentle voice. She shared only briefly about her accident, omitting many details, but explaining enough. How she had lost the use of her legs, how the world after the accident had felt colder, and how she had spent months learning to live again. As she spoke, she looked down, her wavy blonde hair falling forward slightly. Liam did not press for more. He offered no pity. Instead, he looked at her, eyes steady and sincere, and said, "Thank you for sharing that. I feel honored that you trust me with your story." Grace lifted her eyes to his. For a moment she saw no pity, no surprise, only respectful silence and genuine regard. She felt her chest tighten in a surprising way. Then Chloe reached across the table, her small hand slipping into Grace's. She smiled up at Grace and said, with the seriousness of a child who believed in magic, "Today I wished for a friend to eat chicken with me. And you came." Grace froze. The words hung in the air. Time slowed. Liam's fork clattered softly on the plate. The violin above them faltered for a beat. Grace's mouth opened, closed, opened again. She glanced at Chloe, then at Liam, then down at her hands. For a long moment she said nothing. Inside, something cracked wide open. A fragile part of her heart, locked away since the accident, began to move. She realized then, looking at Chloe's trusting face and Liam's steady gaze, that she did not feel broken. She did not feel small. She felt accepted. She felt seen. She had spent so many months feeling lesser than everyone else, feeling as though she did not belong. But in that moment she belonged. Right there, between a curious little girl and a man who had more power in his pinky than many had in their whole lives. She belonged. The violin played on. Chloe hummed as she carefully chewed a piece of her dinner. Grace exhaled slowly, a breath she did not know she was holding. Softly, she whispered, "Thank you, Chloe." Chloe beamed. Liam reached across, covering Grace's hand with his own, a quiet acknowledgement. For the first time in years, Grace Montgomery felt part of something. Not pity, not charity, something real, something human. And beneath the Christmas lights, as snow continued to fall outside the frosted windows of Winter Rose, the three of them shared a simple dinner that felt like belonging. A stolen, fragile, and precious belonging. Snow was falling thicker now, dancing under the golden glow of the street lamps as they stepped out of the Winter Rose. The cold wrapped around them, turning every breath into silver mist. Grace paused near the curb, her hands resting lightly on the wheels of her chair. "Would you like to go a little further?" Liam asked gently. "There's a street nearby that always has the most beautiful lights this time of year." Grace hesitated, caught off guard by the unexpected invitation. Then she nodded. Chloe bounced with delight, her voice ringing out like a Christmas bell. "Snow walk! Snow walk!" The three of them moved along the cobblestone path lined with glowing lights strung overhead. Grace rolled forward slowly, while Liam walked just beside her, not pushing, not crowding, simply walking in quiet step. Chloe skipped ahead, her small boots crunching through the snow, arms stretched wide as if she could hug the night. "Miss Grace, look," Chloe pointed skyward. "The snow looks like cotton candy." Grace laughed. A real, surprised laugh. Her eyes shimmered beneath the lights, and her golden waves danced in the breeze. Liam looked over, caught by the moment. It had been so long since he'd seen someone smile like that, and even longer since it had stirred something in him. As the street grew quieter, the lights softened to a warm glow. Liam tucked his hands into his coat pockets, his voice dropping a little. "You asked earlier why it's just the two of us." Grace looked over but said nothing, letting him take his time. "My wife, Amelia, passed away 3 years ago. Car accident. Chloe wasn't even a year old." Grace's breath caught, her wheels slowing slightly. "I've spent the years since just getting by. Working, parenting, repeating. I didn't let people in. I couldn't risk losing anyone again." His voice faltered slightly at the end, rough around the edges. Chloe, too young to understand the words, leaned gently against his leg. Grace didn't speak for a moment. Then quietly, "I know what it's like to lose something that changes everything. It's not the same, but the ache feels familiar." She didn't need to explain further. Liam saw it in her eyes. The quiet strength, the pain held beneath the calm. Their eyes met. No pity, no apologies. Just two people recognizing the same storm in each other. They turned onto the smaller path toward the bus stop, where the snow had settled deeper. Grace's wheel snagged on something hidden, a buried stone or a patch of uneven ground. Her chair jolted hard to the side. "Oh!" Before she could fall, Liam was at her side, steady as stone. Chloe darted to the other side, arms open like she could catch the world. Together, the two of them held her upright. The chair righted. Chloe puffed her cheeks out and declared proudly, "I got it. I'm super strong." Grace laughed, heart racing from the near fall, but warmed by the sight of her tiny rescuer. Liam chuckled too, a rich, open sound that made the snow feel softer around them. In that fleeting moment, under the falling snow, the three of them laughed like old friends, the weight of the world forgotten. At the bus stop, the cold crept in again. Grace slowed to a stop and turned. "Thank you for walking with me. I can get home from here. I don't want to be a burden." "You're not," Liam said softly. "But I understand. I'll stay until the bus comes." She gave him a look that said everything. "Thank you. I see you. I appreciate you." Chloe slipped her tiny hand into Grace's, warm and sure. "Can you come play in the snow with me tomorrow?" she asked. "We can build a snowman and blow snow bubbles." Grace looked up at Liam, waiting. He paused. That familiar hesitation returned. Fear of letting someone in. Fear his daughter would grow too close. But then he saw Grace, really saw her. The calm strength, the way Chloe glowed beside her. "If your dad says yes," Grace said with a playful smile. Liam's voice was quiet but certain. "I think that sounds like a wonderful idea." Chloe squealed, spinning in circles. The bus pulled up in a haze of warm light and engine hum. Grace turned before boarding. "Merry Christmas to both of you." Liam's voice was gentle. "Grace, I hope we see you again." She smiled, her heart light. Chloe waved furiously. "Good night, Miss Grace. Don't forget tomorrow." The doors closed. The bus pulled away into the snow. But Grace had never felt so warm. The next morning, snow still blanketed the city in a soft hush. Liam walked hand in hand with Chloe through the entrance of the park, her boots crunching over yesterday's frost. Grace was already waiting near a snow-covered bench, bundled in a soft cream scarf, her cheeks rosy from the cold. When Chloe spotted her, she let go of her father's hand and ran forward with glee. "Miss Grace, today we build 3 snowmans." Grace chuckled as Chloe skidded to a stop beside her. "3 snowmen?" she asked, amused. Chloe nodded with determination. "One for me, one for Daddy, and one for you." They found a quiet corner of the park where fresh snow waited untouched. Chloe dove right in, packing snow with the focus of a master sculptor. Grace rolled her sleeves back beneath her coat, pulling on thick gloves. She began shaping the middle section of their snow people, her movements slow but deliberate. Liam knelt nearby, helping with the eyes and scarves. Though powerful in boardrooms, here he was simply a man in the snow with his daughter and someone he wasn't sure how to name yet. But the warmth she brought, it was undeniable. Together, they crafted 3 lopsided, wonderful snowmen, each with its own charm. Chloe stepped back to admire their work, then bent down and picked up a thin stick. With full concentration, she began scratching letters into the snow-covered path. When she finished, she beamed. The letters read, "Family." Grace stared at the word, heart-catching. Liam froze, something unspoken tightening in his chest. Chloe pointed proudly. "That says family. It means 3 people who love each other." Grace bent down, brushing her gloves off. "Sweetheart, there's only one L in family." Chloe giggled. "Oops. But even with 2 L's, we're still one." Her words were innocent, but they landed like lightning. Liam's eyes met Grace's. There was a stillness between them, a fragile, shared realization. For the first time in years, Liam felt something inside him shift. The ache of loss that once made him guard his heart was softening. Grace, she wasn't just easing into Chloe's life. She was easing into his. A sudden gust of wind swept through the park. Grace instinctively tucked her chin into her scarf. Without a word, Liam reached out and adjusted the scarf around her neck, pulling it closer to shield her from the wind. He didn't touch her skin, didn't linger, but the gesture was tender, practiced. Grace didn't move away. She looked at him, eyes wide, surprised by how natural the moment felt. Not invasive, not forced, just kind. The snow continued falling around them in slow, swirling flakes. Chloe spun in circles near the snowmen, arms wide, laughing into the sky. Grace watched her with a soft expression. Then she turned to Liam again, voice low and warm. "I haven't felt this in a long time." He nodded. "Me neither." And in that silence, something unspoken was understood. This, whatever it was more than just a holiday evening. It was becoming real. Grace felt her heart unfolding, carefully, after so long kept tight. And Liam, for the first time in years, felt that maybe it was safe to let someone stay. 2 days after their snowy park adventure, Grace wheeled herself through the quiet halls of the city library. The morning sun filtered through tall windows, casting long shafts of gold across the carpeted floor. The place was calm, almost sacred in its silence. A perfect place to search for vintage books for her small shop. In another wing of the library, Liam was finishing a conversation with the children's librarian. He and Chloe had come to donate a stack of children's books, some well-loved, others brand new. He signed the donation form with his usual efficiency, his attention sharp, until he turned and saw her. Grace. She sat near the window, lit by that same gentle sunlight, leaning close to an elderly woman whose shoulders trembled with age. Grace's head tilted, listening intently. Her blonde waves caught the light like threads of gold. "Would you like me to keep reading?" she asked softly, her voice low and warm. The woman gave a tiny nod. Grace opened a worn copy of Little Women and began reading, her tone calm, her cadence soothing. Each word rolled off her tongue like music. It was a voice that didn't just read, it comforted. Liam stood still, barely breathing. He hadn't expected to see her again so soon, and certainly not like this, surrounded by quiet light, offering gentle care with no audience, no need for thanks. As a breeze slipped through a nearby vent, the older woman shivered slightly. Without pausing in her reading, Grace reached over, adjusted the scarf around the woman's shoulders, and tucked her coat more snugly around her. Liam felt something inside him ache, a strange, quiet ache he hadn't let himself feel in a long, long time. Chloe broke the spell with a squeal. "Miss Grace, I found you." She raced across the room and wrapped her small arms around Grace's chair. Grace looked up, surprised and delighted, her smile bright and unforced. "Hey, sweetheart," she said, ruffling Chloe's curls. Liam approached, trying to appear casual. but his voice was gentler than usual when he spoke. I didn't know we had the same taste in libraries. Grace chuckled. I come here a lot. Old books need a second chance. They settled onto a bench near the children's corner while Chloe played with a stuffed bear. The moment felt oddly natural, as if they had done this before. Liam watched Chloe try to spell family out loud, mouthing the letters slowly with a crayon in hand. He turned to Grace. What kind of books do you love most? Grace ran her fingers along the spine of the novel in her lap. Stories that help people heal. The kind that reach the places even people can't touch. Liam was quiet for a beat. I know what you mean. I think I've been trying to heal too, through stories. And through kind people. Their eyes met again. Not like strangers. Not like friends. Something deeper. A knowing. As they stood to leave, Liam hesitated, then reached into his coat pocket. Grace, he said, almost unsure. If you don't mind, he handed her a simple business card. A close friend of mine runs a rehab center, Hawthorne. He's helped a lot of people. If you ever want to try, just call him. Or me. Grace looked down at the card. Her fingers trembled slightly as she accepted it. The expression on her face wasn't just surprise, it was hope. Hope she had tried to bury long ago. She looked up, her eyes glassy, a soft smile on her lips. She didn't speak, but she didn't have to. Liam nodded. He understood. As he walked out of the library, Chloe skipping ahead of him, Liam felt something he hadn't felt in years. His heart was beating in a way he remembered. A way he had locked away after Amelia. And now, it was stirring again. Grace sat on the edge of her bed, the morning light stretching across her blanket like a soft invitation. In her hand, the business card from Liam rested between her fingers. She had turned it over at least 100 times in the past 2 days. Finally, she exhaled, picked up her phone, and dialed the number. She scheduled her first appointment at the Hawthorne Rehab Center for that Friday. She did not tell Liam, but across town, Chloe had her own way of sensing things. All morning, she sang her new song beside her father, hopping from one foot to the other. Miss Grace will stand up soon. She's got magic knees. Liam raised an eyebrow. Magic knees? Chloe giggled. It means she's strong. The rehab center was quiet, bright, and filled with the subtle scent of lavender. Grace arrived early, nerves fluttering in her chest like birds, unsure whether to fly or freeze. A therapist guided her to a set of parallel bars, a supportive harness, and a standing frame. She was adjusting her gloves when a familiar voice called out, Grace. She turned. Liam stood at the door, Chloe bouncing beside him. We're just here to cheer you on, he said calmly. Nothing more. Grace smiled, small but real, and warmer than the morning sun outside. With her therapist's help, she placed her hands on the bars and began to lift. Her legs trembled under the pressure. Her breath caught. 3 seconds. 5 seconds. She was standing. Chloe clapped wildly, her voice echoing off the walls. You're doing it. You're a superhero. Liam said nothing, but the way he looked at Grace said everything. Like she was made of iron and starlight all at once. With each session, the seconds added up. Some days, she could hold herself up for nearly a minute. Her balance began to improve, just enough to feel like her legs were listening again, until one moment changed everything. They were working on a single, tentative step. Grace had one hand on the bar, the other stretched slightly forward. Her right foot lifted, then failed. Her ankle buckled. She fell hard. Pain bloomed through her wrist where she tried to catch herself. The sound of her body hitting the mat felt louder than it should have. Liam rushed forward but stopped inches away, kneeling beside her. Grace, may I help? She shook her head, trembling. Her voice cracked. I'm sorry. I tried. I really tried. You don't have to be sorry. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Why can't I just be normal? Why can't I have control again? Liam clenched his jaw, his fists tight at his sides. He didn't know how to fix this pain. He only knew how to witness it. The door suddenly burst open. Chloe sprinted in, her tiny arms wrapped around something soft and familiar, her stuffed bear. "Miss Grace," she cried. "Look." She held the bear up proudly. One of its legs, previously torn, had been sewn back on with bright red thread. "I fixed him. See? Now he's better. You'll be better too. 'Cause you're strong. You're stronger than him." Grace broke. Her sobs weren't quiet or graceful. They came from a place deep inside, a part of her that hadn't let go in years. She reached out and held Chloe to her chest, her whole body shaking with release. Liam turned away, blinking quickly. He had not seen her this raw before, but he also had never admired her more. In that small therapy room, between the pain and the tears, something shifted. Grace wasn't broken. She was healing, and she wasn't alone anymore. Spring came to Boston like a gentle breath after a long, hard winter. The sky was clear, the breeze light, and sunlight spilled onto the sidewalks like melted gold. Inside her little bookstore, Grace stood behind the counter with one hand braced on the polished oak. She had been practicing quietly every day, and today, for the first time, she stood for nearly 30 seconds. Her legs trembled but held. She smiled, proud and alone in the warmth of her own small victory. The bell above the door jingled. Chloe burst in first, twirling in her yellow spring dress, a bouquet of pink tulips clutched tightly in her arms. Liam followed behind, his smile soft and steady. "Happy spring, Miss Grace," Chloe cheered, lifting the tulips toward her. Liam's eyes widened slightly when he saw her standing. "You did it," Grace nodded, breathless but glowing. "I'm getting stronger." Later that afternoon, the three of them strolled beneath blooming cherry blossoms. Chloe led the way, darting from one patch of petals to the next. Grace moved slowly, her hand occasionally brushing the railing by the walkway. Liam walked beside her, close enough to shelter her from the breeze, far enough to honor her space. "Every day, I get a little stronger," Grace said quietly, her voice threading between the falling petals. "Because of you. Both of you." Liam looked at her then, really looked. The kind of gaze that held meaning, memory, and something he had tried to keep hidden. Chloe spotted a cluster of blossoms and ran toward them, leaving Grace and Liam in the hush beneath the trees. "I told myself not to expect anything," Liam said after a pause. "But Grace, I care about you. More than I realized. More than I thought I could." Grace turned her face toward him, heart pounding. She glanced down at her legs, then lifted her eyes again. Her gaze was clear, calm. "I was afraid to feel anything after the accident. Afraid to hope again. But you and Chloe, you made me believe I still could." A breeze stirred the branches above them, and pink petals drifted down, soft as breath. Liam stepped closer, no longer uncertain. "Grace, if you'll let me, I want to be with you. Not because I feel sorry for you, because I love you." Grace reached out, her hand finding his. There was no hesitation in her touch, only truth. "I love you too, Liam." Chloe spun back into view, arms wide. "I knew it. You're real family now." Grace laughed, and this time, there was no trace of fear in it, just joy. She leaned gently into Liam's side, for once, allowing herself to rest, to trust. He kissed her forehead, slow and reverent. "Daddy, Miss Grace, let's go get spring ice cream." Chloe grinned. Liam squeezed Grace's hand. Grace looked up at him and whispered, "Yeah, let's go home." They walked down the path as petals rained around them, like a silent blessing. A family no longer broken, a love finally spoken aloud. If this story of healing, hope, and unexpected love touched your heart, we invite you to become part of our growing family. At Kindness and Love Tales, every story is a warm hug, a reminder that love can bloom even after life's hardest winters. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more heartfelt journeys just like Grace and Liam's. Your support helps us bring more kindness into the world, one tale at a time. Click that bell so you never miss a story that just might change your day or your life.